And the two groups that'll come after me are going to be the right wing, which has now metastasized into MAGA and white nationalists, and Muslims and Desis, my own people. Because when it comes to my own people, eventually I'll air some dirty laundry. Log kya bolenge? I'll make us quote unquote look bad. They'll love me until I just step out of bounds, and then they'll be the ones that'll be most vicious.
We are here with Wajahat Ali, who I had the pleasure of meeting at the TCF fundraiser a couple days back. And we're so happy to have you here today. You kind of went through a law school attorney journey and then took that and put it in your writing. So, how did you go from being focused on the attorney realm to the journalistic realm?
I was an undeclared senior at UC Berkeley. In the back of my mind, since I was a kid, I always knew I wanted to do something with storytelling or writing or performing. So I'm like, all right, well, I got to do something respectable. Maybe I could do law. And so in my first year, which is very important, the first year of law school, where are you going to intern? Who are you going to work for? And that company might bring you back and yada, yada. I ditched all that and used whatever little money that I had, which was nothing, and did a DIY do-it-yourself play. And all my law professors used to beg me to not do law. And I'm like, am I that bad? They're like, no, you're a bright guy, but you can escape. You can be the one that escapes. So please don't do it. So it's one of those things where I swear to you, I really tried. I graduated law school and it was the 2008 recession. And I could not get a job to save my life. And I had all these amazing interviews and it just wouldn't land. And I'm like, what's happening? So this is where I want to say, for those who are listening, sometimes failure is this remarkable gift that forces you into an uncomfortable direction. And I say that because if many of you are listening who are upper middle class, kids of immigrants, suburban kids, there's a checklist of success and we're terrified. We're terrified to ever fail. We have to check all the boxes. And so in a strange way, looking back at it in hindsight, me not getting the law job forced me to start writing. And I started writing and started doing interviews and op-eds like you're doing. And then people started recognizing me as something called a social media journalist. I'm like, I am? They're like, you are. And then the play took off. And then I was doing law on the side to pay my bills. And I created this weird bouillabaisse Halim type career that to this day, I have no idea what I want to be when I grow up.
Wow, that Halim analogy was something I never knew I needed.
Wheats and spices and meat in a bowl that somehow works.
Yeah, of course. So you were very fortunate to have supporting parents with your career. And I think a lot of us who are storytellers in the media industry can relate to pushback we've experienced. There are some articles or pieces that I've published that my parents have looked at and been like, why do you need to do this?
Yeah.
And your platform, Twitter or X, today has accumulated so many followers and you use it to be an activist for change. How do you deal with pushback from your own cultural or religious community despite the good you're doing for them?
Yeah, see, I've never considered myself an activist. I don't have those delusions of grandeur. I've just been very opinionated and I've been passionate about my opinions. I try to be informed. I tried my best to be informed about my opinions. I've always been this way, even when I was a really shy kid. When it came time to me representing or stepping up or raising my hand, in a strange way, I always did that. But you gain more and more confidence as you get older. It's interesting. I remember when I started off my career, I think I told my mom, I predict there'll be two groups who will always be after me. And this is before cancel culture, So let's just use the stupid term cancel culture retroactively. And the two groups that'll come after me are going to be the right wing, which has now metastasized into MAGA and white nationalists, and Muslims and Desis, my own people. Because when it comes to my own people, eventually I'll air some dirty laundry. Log kya bolenge? I'll make us quote unquote look bad. They'll love me until I just step out of bounds, and then they'll be the ones that'll be most vicious, because it's your own tribe that becomes most vicious when they see you as a traitor to the tribe. And the reason for it is, some people say, oh, Wajahat betrayed us. He doesn't represent us. Why him? But another part of it, and you see this from a lot of communities of color, it's not unique to just Desis and Muslims. It's the crab mentality. How did this haramzada, chutia, Salah, how did he get out? Why did he make it to the New York Times? How come I didn't make it? So that's one aspect of it. Then the third is, when you're a beleaguered minority, you are more prone to conspiracy theories, because it's not just conspiracy theories, because the system is against you. So the only way this chutia made it is because he sold out. And then finally, of course, it's because they might not like some of my opinions. And I could tell you it was always from the beginning, Aneesa, like even from my play, why him? Which is interesting. So I've had to create my own community, but within the community of Desi and Muslim artists and academics, I've always had a foot in and a foot out. And I've kind of been that way my entire career.
I can't speak for everyone, but I know us Pakistanis are really bad at taking criticism. But
Yeah.
what happens is the criticism that comes from our own is because we love Pakistan, we want to help it, we want to improve it. But I don't think we're open-minded enough or we've grown enough to get to that state. I really have so much admiration for you because you started your career really early on post 9/11. And for me, I was just 1 or 2 during that time.
Wow.
But sorry, not to make you feel old.
I am old. My hair is thinning. I'm turning 43 this week. Yeah, no, it's fine. See, I've earned each gray. It's fine. My wife is like, please don't die here.
Okay, but as I was saying, so I was only 1 or 2 at the time of 9/11. So media since then has become increasingly aggressive and biased. And of course, we've also progressed in terms of our representation and who's writing articles. I don't know if in that time I would be able to look up a podcast or someone like you writing these articles from a perspective that is very similar to mine. In order for me to educate myself and develop an opinion on issues right now, including the genocide occurring in Palestine, I actually listen to your podcast, Democracy-ish, like very regularly.
Oh, thank you. That means a lot to me and Danielle. I appreciate that.
Yeah. The reason I do that is because I've read your articles and I'm like, this is a person that aligns with my core beliefs. So I'm going to align with the way that they speak about this very core issue. Because of the involvement in media so far, what is your suggestion for navigating this issue and understanding it? And it's a very loaded question, but a lot of people are getting misinformation. A lot of people don't understand what objectivity is. And in my perspective, I don't think we can change someone's view who's completely right-wing or left-wing, but us as storytellers have the opportunity to educate people who have no idea what's happening right now. So how are you navigating this?
There's a lot in that question. Let me peel it back. So as an old person, looking back in hindsight, I can tell you the good and the bad and the ugly. The same problems that exist now existed then. So with 9/11, what happened is corporate media became stenographers for power. They took the marching orders and talking points from the Bush administration. They rarely pushed back. It was such an insane climate. What's happening right now with Israel and Gaza, it's very similar. You know, their very legitimate rage and pain has turned into bloodlust, which is then creating policies that will only cause further destruction, right? So in that time, you know, when we were young, we tried our best to be out in the streets and protest, but we saw that didn't matter because power forged ahead and did what it had to do. And there were very few, if any, people who looked like you and me. I mean, it was rare when some of us even got to be a commentator or to be a guest on like a 5-minute panel. So you see the fast forward 20 years, you're seeing that diversity of voices. And even now you're seeing, for the first time, you're seeing Palestinians. I mean, it's still lopsided, but you're just hearing Palestinians and you're seeing a pushback. And as a result of social media, look, social media itself, it's a tool. It's a tool that can be used for good or for bad. And we've seen people like you and me, as a result of social media, have a voice. But we've also seen it being used and abused by both corporate titans and also bad faith actors. And you're seeing the spread of rage and anger and white supremacy and extremism. And you've seen it as a radicalizing force to the point where during COVID, and COVID's still around, but I know you and I know many Pakistani doctors, and on WhatsApp, I got like educated Pakistani doctors sending me like the most bakwas. I'm like, dude, you're a doctor. They're like, Wajahat, is this right? I'm like, no, that is not right. I'm terrified that you as a doctor are sending me this. But it just shows you, with the lack of trust in institutions, the lack of representation, you see people turning away, and then in social media, instead of it bridging the divides, it created these insular cocoons. So that's where we are right now, and I agree with you. I've been saying this for 7 years, and it seems that my prediction is correct. If you look at all the numbers, that we have lost about 25 to 30% of Americans for our lifetime. They live on Earth 3. You cannot reach them. And if you look at all the data, it's 25 to 30%. It just doesn't matter. And so what I say is, you don't necessarily give up on them, Aneesa. What the analogy I give is, the caravan of the majority has to move forward, but my door will always be open and my hand will be outstretched, but it's your job to jump on. But we can't wait. And the problem with this both sides false equivalence, and, you know, where some voices matter more than others, white conservative voices, is that the majority is hijacked by the 30%. And the majority is hijacked by the bad faith efforts of the 25% who always whine, and cry victimhood and work the refs. I'll say one last quick thing. The pushback actually and the pressure affects them, because you're seeing that these journalists are affected, and oftentimes they're very fickle, and you're seeing that the majority is like aggressively attacking them for being so soft. You're seeing them up their game a bit. I don't know if you've noticed. You've seen it in the last 2-3 months.
It's really difficult too, because there's just so much coming out at the same time. And I think in the past, when there hasn't been any media coverage on Palestinians, and now we're getting a lot of it, but at the same time, we're getting pushed back from the Israeli media as well. So how can we kind of educate ourselves in a way that, obviously, again, there's no objective news platform, but what can we do to educate ourselves to people who just want to be informed and know?
This is where I recommend being a good reader. This is where I recommend being a careful reader. This is where I recommend vetting your sources. The more you get outside of your cocoon and the more diverse it can be, and the more you can go for folks who are consistent, that way you can double check, right? So even if something's off, then you're like, oh, there was a correction. Be mindful of just spreading like insane videos that you get from your uncle or your chachi or your friend. See if there's a second source. See if it's been verified. And look, we all fall victim to it, because as a result of social media, your thumb is right there. Very easy to retweet. That's where people, average Jose's, can intervene and stop something from spiraling and spreading.
Yeah, I agree completely. I think fact checking is really important. I think people should look and read and analyze what they're reposting before they repost it. But along those lines, people like me, other people who are emerging, journalists, storytellers, filmmakers, a lot of the time we have issues where we're freelancing or working in a company and we find out that the employer has very controversial views in something. How well do you hold your principles when freelancing for companies if you're working for a company that gives money to a negative cause? Given that also we are all struggling artists, we are thankful for any job we get.
It is very tough. And, especially as media gets more corporate, you have to realize that even though there are good people working there whose North Star might be, good stories and try your best to be fair and accurate and thorough, the North Star for corporate media is not good journalism. It is profits, ratings, and eyeballs. I'm not being cynical. I'm just being accurate. Anyone who says otherwise is ignorant. That's how it is. And so as media is being more and more consolidated, and if you look behind the curtain, you see it's corporate media, that's their end game. If you feel that you being quiet is so stifling that you are going against your values and it's not worth it, then you should leave, right? My definition of selling out is if you deliberately engage in a work that you know is contradictory to your morals and ethics, but you still do it for the money and you rationalize it. That's my definition of selling out. But if you really feel like that, then I wouldn't do it. Now, this is where I might have the benefit or privilege to say I wouldn't work with those individuals or companies, because if you really look at my career, everyone thinks I'm making a lot of money. I wish it were true. Everyone thinks because I write for the New York Times, I get paid by the New York Times. I do not. Everyone thinks like, I'm sitting on like millions of dollars. I have been essentially self-employed for the overwhelming majority of my career. I'm a freelancer. I'm unemployed. I eat what I hunt. Like literally, I've only been quote unquote employed for maybe max 3 years of the past 20 years. Other than that, look, I've tried to be employed, but I'm like, mashallah, unemployable. And I, people like me too. It's not because like I'm a tough to work with, quite the opposite. But it just, the way it's worked out is that overwhelmingly, I've kind of been independent. And so that independence gives me freedom to say what I want. But the problem then is when you're independent, you have to eat what you hunt, right? Every day. It's interesting where I'm at this stage of my life where I'm like, oh, somehow I survived. Alhamdulillah. And so for me moving forward, I need a forum where I can speak out, because like, look what's happening in the world.
Yeah.
And so they're like, you know what? Maybe I don't need corporate media. It seems like the world is changing.
In this next generation, though, coming in, what type of content do you want to see more of? What type of perspectives? And what do you want to see more of in news from people like us?
Well, I always said this, even when I was starting off, I want to bring the mirch and the masala. Like, why should I keep it away? And I was always told, don't bring in the mirch and the masala. Make it yogurty. Make it bland. Take away the Urdu words and the Arabic words. Growing up in a diverse Bay Area, and also oftentimes growing up as the token, I realized my non-Desi, non-Muslim friends always enjoyed the mirch and the masala, and they were like tastier, literally and figuratively. So I always made the decision early on that if it's between me making my khana completely bland to make it palatable to a quote unquote mainstream quote white audience, or doing it the way I want, enjoying the meal and maybe losing out on the pesa, at least I'll enjoy the meal. Imagine spending your entire life making a meal that you don't even enjoy. Isn't that sad?
Yeah.
Right? Suppose you even make pesa off it and you make money off it and other people enjoying it, but you don't enjoy the kana that you make. That's not the way I want to go out. At the very least, if I can control the ingredients in my meal and I enjoy it, win. If that meal then can feed and nourish and entertain like a global audience, super win.